everybody, Jeff Schneider here, and today we're going to listen to a 20-year-old solo of mine. I was 17 years old, and I remember being in New York City playing at a jazz club called Smoke with the Manhattan School of Music Jazz Prep Program Big Band. And we were playing this chart 3-in-1. It's a great chart by Thad Jones, and I had an alto saxophone solo right in the middle, and I actually transcribed the solo so we can go through it in detail and pick out some of the things I did well, go over some of the things that didn't go so well, so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and make some of those changes in your own playing. If for whatever reason you want to download this sheet music, you can get it for free, linked in the description below, and I'll transpose it for various instruments, bass clef, treble clef, and so on. So, without further ado, let's jump into the solo. Here's the beginning of it. It sounds like this. So the beginning of this solo is not actually that bad. I'm doing some things well here. Like for instance, the first phrase that I play, this 2-note phrase going up, I actually build on that. I repeat myself. I do the same kind of thing here, and then even here, it's still a 2-note phrase going up. Yes, the interval is smaller here, but it's repeated, and that helps this whole opening of the solo feel coherent and cohesive rather than a whole bunch of random note noodles that just kind of meander along. A lot of people, including myself, have the habit of rambling. I do it certainly with the way I talk, but a lot of people do this with their soloing as well, where they just kind of play random ideas that don't connect to one another. So the best antidote to that is repetition, and that's what I'm doing here. The other thing that I'm doing well here is I leave space. All of those rests give the listener a chance to absorb that initial idea. And you know, we're coming off of another solo. You heard the applause there at the beginning. It gives me a chance to kind of settle in as well, as does this thing right in here where I just play the same note, quarter notes over and over and over again. This is a great hack to settle into the groove and really feel the beat. It's like you're playing a bass line, like a walking bass line. Just repeating those quarter notes, it gets you locked in. It's a good way to kind of get your bearings rhythmically speaking. Okay, so from there, let's hear what happens. Okay, we stopped right there. I'm repeating my ideas. You can still hear that development, but here's where things start to go a little bit sour, and it's mostly in terms of the phrasing. The way that I would describe it is jumpy and a little bit anxious, overeager. It's very on top of the beat. And if I were to go back in time and give myself one tip, it would be to relax and lay back, play slower than you think you need to. The notes here are fine, the ideas are fine, but as I've said many times on this channel, you can play all of the right notes in the world. If the feel and the phrasing aren't there, it's not gonna sound good. So this doesn't sound bad, it just sounds a little jumpy to me. Listen again and see if you can hear what I mean. It's just like ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. It's just too much, it's like a runaway train. But in terms of the notes, I am developing an idea. I'm repeating myself across multiple chord changes, and that's helping, again, make this thing feel like a cohesive, coherent solo. I'm also doing a decent job as far as outlining the chord changes. If you look here, I've got the F sharp there on the D7, and then I hit the G, which is the 1 of G7, and I'm playing a lot of chord tones here. So this is the 1, this is the 5, this is the 5, and then I do this little chromatic neighbor thing where I go C, B, C, and that sets up the root of C7. Again, here's the 5, and then the same kind of thing. I'm setting up the 1 here of the F7. On this approach, I'm actually doing an above-below target note approach sequence. What that means is this F sharp right here is a half step above this F, and this E is a half step below this F. So you get this effect. And I do the same kind of thing right in here as I approach the B flat. See, I've got a B flat here as my target note, and then the B natural is a half step above, and the A natural is a half step below. It sounds like this. So with these two things back to back, I'm basically playing the same phrase, just transposing it to fit the chord changes. So if I take it right here on this F sharp, it's the same kind of thing. So a few things to note there. I'm setting up these chord tones fairly well, and I'm doing so in a way that's repetitive, which again, repetition is the secret to making your solos feel like there's some glue holding it together rather than the rambling, meandering lines. All right, let's keep going. It's fine. I'm kind of getting the effect of a consecutive eighth note line, which is cool, but the notes themselves feel a little bit unsure. I'm not really playing any vocabulary here. Like, this is a fairly common chord progression, this G minor 7, C7, F minor 7, B flat 7. That's a 3-6-2-5-1 in the key of E flat major. And I think even at 17, I knew some licks, I knew some vocabulary that I could have played over such a common chord progression, but instead I just end up playing a whole bunch of random notes that some of them hit, some of them are setting up chord tones with approach note sequences, but all in all, it kind of sounds like I'm approximating these chord changes and not outlining them as elegantly as I could have. Again, the phrasing is what really turns me off. It just sounds so jumpy. Listen to me play these eighth note lines. It's just like, it's just way too much energy going on. It really could use a dose of laying back and chilling out. It's just way too much of this bouncy feeling. Actually, a year after I recorded this, I took lessons with George Garzone, and he has all of his students play completely straight eighth notes without any articulation, and I could have used a big dose of that medicine back in this stage of my playing because it's just so jumpy. Versus something like that's just a lot more subdued, it's more subtle, but the next part actually is kind of cool. Check this out. Actually, before we listen to that, I've got to let you know that the Soloing Bootcamp is 80% off right now. It's a collection of my best courses on soloing and improvisation. It includes the soloing system, improvising with the blues scale without sounding like an amateur, making the changes. There's so much packed into this bundle, into this bootcamp, and it's at such a great price right now. You've got to check it out. Click the link somewhere on the screen, also in the description below. But now let's listen to this next section. Okay, so I do some cool things here rhythmically. Do you know what it was? It was implying a 3/4 time signature over this 4/4 time signature. So this rhythm right here where I start on the and of 1, and then I repeat the rhythm starting on the and of 4, and then on the and of 3, and then on the and of 2. I keep repeating the same rhythm, but this rhythm is a 3/4 rhythm. So if I'm counting on my fingers like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, it sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Ba ba da da, ba ba da da, ba ba da da, ba ba da da. Same rhythm, and if you're counting it in 3, it's starting on the and of 1 each time. But if you're counting it in 4, it kind of cycles through these different starting points. Like I said, and of 1, and of 4, and of 3, and of 2, and of 1 right here, and then you're back to the and of 4, and I keep doing it. I've got the and of 3 here, and then the and of 2. So I'm doing it for almost 8 measures, and then finally we exit out of it here with this release on that F there. And the nice thing is that the band is actually following along with this rhythmic playfulness, and you can hear us exit out of this rhythmic tension that we've created all at the same time, and it creates this really satisfying moment where we all have this release of tension. So check it out one more time and listen to how the band kind of latches on to what I'm doing with my solo. And that's really the beauty of jazz. It's everybody listening to each other and making something new, some new music spontaneously. And that only works if people are listening to each other. And that's how you know you've got a rhythm section that's doing a good job, because they're not just doing a play along while you do a solo. They're actually playing with you and listening and interacting. It's all about that musical communication that you have as a soloist with your band. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, the vocabulary is a little bit better here than it was in the other time we had this section, this little sequence of chords right here. Now we're in here, and the line is better, but the phrasing is still rough. It's still really jumpy. Ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. It's all about straightening out those eighth notes and relying more on just dynamics. And I wish I had known that back then, because it would have improved a line like this, where the notes aren't too bad. You know, I'm hitting the chord tones. You know, I've got the third there of G minor 7. I've got the G of C7. I've got the E flat. These are all chord tones that work. And it's just a shame that the line kind of fell apart due to the phrasing. I mean, it didn't fall apart. It just sounds clumsy to me. It sounds amateurish. So that's what I would tell myself if I got to go back in time. Anyway, let's take a listen to the next part. Okay, that line I like. Be-ba-doop, be-boop. Here's the whole thing. Now the notes in here get a little weird. I'm not sure what I'm doing playing a C sharp on an A minor 7, but you know, the truth is the notes don't matter. I've said this before, I'll say it again. Notes don't matter as much as phrasing and rhythm. And the fact that I've repeated that rhythm right here, I've got that whole repetition legitimizes thing going for me, and that helps sell even the notes that don't technically work with the chords. This is another good use of repetition, right in here, where I have this line. It's a very similar idea. I'm doing this half note approach thing from the F sharp up to the G. Yes, it's a major 7 and it's a G7 chord. So again, that F sharp doesn't technically work on the G7, but that doesn't matter. The point is that it's an approach note that leads us to the G right there. And then what we have is a triad arpeggio going down from the G, which is the root, to the D, which is the 5, to B, which is the 3rd. And then on the C7, I've got another triad arpeggio. I've got an E here, which is the 3rd, C is the 1, and G is the 5. And the note that sets this all up is E flat, which is a half step below my target note, E. So it's the same concept. It's playing a major triad going down. It's a different inversion. Remember, this is 1-5-3 and this one is 3-1-5, but I'm approaching it from that half step below so you can hear how similar the lines are. These two phrases, they're almost the same, just different inversions of those triads. Now that's an actual line, that's real vocabulary there. I'm going down the bebop scale on F7. And then I'm on the B flat 7 there. And it's almost like I'm implying an F minor 9 chord there. So right in here, this is the F7 bebop scale. And then I have this arpeggio like figure right in here, which is kind of like F minor 9. So even though the chord change here says B flat 7, when you have a B flat 7 chord or a 5 chord, you can break that up into a 2-5. So instead of just B flat 7, I'm kind of implying this F minor 9 going to B flat 7 for the second half of that measure. Also, this whole line, it feels like a puzzle piece that completes this setup right here, this ba-ba-da-da, ba-ba-da-ba, ba-da-da-ba-da-ba-da, boo-ba-doo-ba-doo-ba. That feels like an answer to those first two phrases in that section, even just rhythmically. Ba-ba-da-da, ba-ba-da-da, ba-da-da-ba-da-ba-da, boo-ba-dee-boo-boo-ba. And the fact that the actual notes work well and I'm playing real lines, of course, that helps too. Okay, so now I go into like Lenny Pickett mode, SNL band, and yeah, it's cool. It's some bluesy stuff right in here. I've got this bendy thing happening, and then I play the high altissimo note there. But again, it's just rushed. It just feels rushed to me, like especially this note right here. It's like ba ba ba. It's this snowballing runaway train effect that I just can't stand because I talk about it with my students all the time. I'm always pointing it out. So to hear myself do it, it just drives me nuts. That's something you have to watch out for when you're going to the top of a chorus or you're going to play a high note or any kind of point of focus. You have to be careful not to get there too early because the notes that we focus on, the ones that we deem are important, most of the time we get there a little too soon. So you have to kind of work against that tendency and force yourself to lay back and just get there a little bit later than you think you need to. All the bends in here, it's a little bit too saccharine for me. I'm laying it on too thick with the saxophone bends and all that. I probably wouldn't have overdone it as much if I got to do this again. It's just a little too much for my taste, at least in 2025. The 16th note lines in here, these fast parts, they're fine. The note choices are fine. But if I remember correctly, I used to do a lot of this fast playing about 2/3 of the way into the solo, like I needed to create more energy, or I had to have some section that felt more showy, that I was showing off my technical skills. And it's just, I was just doing it for the sake of playing fast rather than actually contributing to the music itself. So this was one of those instances of trying to sound good rather than make good music. I'm starting to sound like a one-trick pony here. I keep taking my ideas and transposing them through the chord changes, but that's a great technique. This is something that I still do and I encourage my students to do. It's where you take an idea. In this case, I have this little lick right in here, and then I repeat it on the F7, more or less. And then again on the B-flat 7. So there's some slight variation, but it's essentially the same idea. I'm just transposing it through the chord changes. And that is a great way, as I've said before, of making your solo feel more substantial rather than those note noodles that just don't go anywhere. Repeat yourself and repeat your ideas across different chords so that it sounds interesting because the notes are changing, but you can hear the similarity from phrase to phrase. This is a nice little build, this little rhythmic thing that I'm doing here, this ba-ba-da-ba-da-ba-da. It's the same technique that I showed you before where I'm playing a 3/4 rhythm over 4/4 time signature. 1, 2, 3, here we go. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba. It's a 3/4 rhythm over 4/4 and you get that rhythmic tension, and then I release into this really schmaltzy wah wah. It's a little too much there again. Now, right in here, I actually do a decent job of laying back. You can hear this slight hesitation. I think it's right on those B flats there. Listen to how I'm laying back on the beat, and it sounds the opposite of overeager. It sounds like I've got all the time in the world. Okay, so it's ba ba ba. It's this B flat right here. You have to listen close because it's the most subtle delay. It's a little bit late, and that creates a more relaxed feel. Right here. It's not ba 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 da, it's ba 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 ba. It's this split second of hesitation, and that can be a really effective way of getting that laid back feel. I think the big takeaways are feel and phrasing is everything. You can play all the right notes. If it's too frantic in terms of how you're playing them, it's not going to sound good. It sounds amateurish, at least to my ears. So again, I would tell myself, straighten out those eighth notes. Don't swing as hard in terms of the rhythm. Just swing using your accents. It's a lot more legato, a lot more connected. And, there are a couple of times where I kind of BS my way through the changes. I would want to shore up my vocabulary for those sections, especially especially on the progressions that are common, and I really should have lines ready to go for those 2/5s and 3/6 2/5 ones. But I think overall it's a pretty good solo. If you guys dig this kind of thing, you like me analyzing my own playing, I can also analyze your playing. It's actually something that I do regularly as part of my group coaching program called The Shed, and you get free access if you join the Soloing Bootcamp. Again, it's 80% off through the rest of this month, linked on the screen and somewhere in the description below. And in the meantime, if you want to watch another video, you can click on this one right here, and I'll see you over there. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.